The only mystery we're solving is how did this get a season 2? So Velma season 2 is the season 2 continuation of Velma, which highly hated by fans, but it made so much views on HBO Max that I thought, you know what? It's a good enough show. Let's make a season 2 of it just now. The story continues Velma and the sort of not Scooby Gang against a serial killer where, unlike season 1, I could say season 1 broke the boundaries of what it could do with the Scooby-Doo characters, but in this season, at least some of the characters aren't complete trash, because you got to remember in season 1 you saw Velma as the self-obsessed narcissistic character, which all the Scooby characters besides her felt a bit almost in touch but out of character in some ways. Velma was the only one who was pushing, oh, I was solving mysteries and I feel like I could do this. And going into season 2, I'm like, okay, that has changed. You're almost confident enough that you want to solve mysteries with the gang, but then again, you're still a bit self-obsessed because there are some little things in your life that's not going as well as you planned. And I feel like that's still bad character writing if you're gonna do problems like that with these characters. Just like season 1, they already refer to certain characters in the Scooby-Doo lore, but in this season, they found a way to introduce the Hex Girls, or should I say, the leader, and actually have her own daughter, which I gotta say, why'd you do my goth girl dirty like that? Like, no, these Hex Girls characters were some of the main staples of iconic Scooby Doo characters, and the way they did her like this is like, wow, you really pushed it that far to hurt us. Even the fact that certain characters in season 1 who were a bit controversial, they were at least touched up in this because Daphne was the only one resilient to say that she felt almost like a CW style character interpretation because she was, oh, I have parents who love me, but I'm still doing all the stuff on the side, like selling drugs, and I want to be resilient. But I'm like, why? You don't have to. You're just supposed to be the teen girl who's supposed to be at least into the mysteries, but also aware that you have nothing to bring into the group unless Fred is involved. But still, Fred, he was a funny highlight in season 2 too, because in season 1 I gave it a pass because it was basically Glenn Howerton doing the voice, and the only thing I saw was Dennis from It's Always Sunny as Fred. But in season 1 he was a bit annoying, but in this season at least they found a way to actually make him a bit more competent. He's not too much of an idiot. He is for the first half at least, but I like his funny answers like, oh, my mom wasn't even a serial killer, and the Catholic Church taught me to teach these beings, so like that I can respect it and at least acknowledge the fact that they're doing good for us. I'm like, okay, that's your funny little side plot. But the only character I feel like is better in season 1 and in season 2 is basically Norville, or in this case Shaggy, because he's a bit traumatized over what happened in the last season, killing Fred's mom, who was the actual serial killer. But in this, I feel like his story, like, even though they can't have Scooby doing it just yet, in this series, I feel like, okay, you don't got to experiment with some of the cliche Shaggy does. Like, he gets the fact that he has to smoke weed, which everybody knows Shaggy was at least smoking a bit of stuff in the old cartoons, even though he always had the munchies. But in this season, he's eating food. He's not using too much of the catchphrases like Zoink and anything like that. He still wears the green shirt, but some of his personality is a bit funny to me because I'm like, yeah, Shaggy's the smart one. And in this case, he's not the one who's always afraid. He's being traumatized by the ghost. And I'm like, huh, at least they're acknowledging a way to say, oh, this is Shaggy, but he's not Shaggy just yet, but you're still seeing the little foundations of him actually becoming Shaggy. The only thing I could say is that the mystery in this season, I can't say because they put all the episodes at once. And once I saw that, I said, oh, you're definitely not getting a season 3. And for me, binging the series, I'm like, you have your moments, but none of this actually correlates into a good show because what season 1 did was find any way in saying, you know what? Forget the Scooby Doo characters. Let's just make a raunchy show and just traumatize all these characters and butcher the way we all knew them. And this season, I'm like, at least you're trying to solve a mystery, but none of the characters are too interesting. And the fact that you have a formidable Scooby Doo plan and formula, the only thing that they're not doing is actually having the characters team up one by one and actually show their actual companionship. Fred and Daphne don't get along. Shaggy doesn't even get along with Velma because of the whole thing with season 1 and how he's debating on whether having a crush on Velma and actually having a crush on Daphne. None of that makes sense. Fred is the only one I'm like, okay, you have the mystery machine, but you're not actually using the van to your advantage or actually showing how you're good at making traps. The animation is nice too, but my problem about this whole show is that you can actually do a Scooby Doo R rated cartoon or an adult rated show for Scooby Doo fans. But my problem with this is that they try to do too much raunchy stuff and try to do a comedy that doesn't make any sense. Even to where in one segment I was like, wow. So this tells me you can actually make a good, decent show, but you just don't want to do it on purpose because they have one scene where Velma is like, oh, I'm getting too popular, that everybody's taking my look, and you actually see two characters that resemble Daphne and Velma from the original cartoon in their style, which I'm like, so you're telling me you have these designs ready and prepped, but you just don't want to use it just for wokeness, diversity, and attempts at humor that aren't even funny as the show you're actually parroting, which is funny? All I know is that most people are just gonna watch it because of the memes, or at least find a way to make it so, oh, I hate the show even more. To me, it's not that I hate the show, it's just that the fact that it's more disappointing in the fact that Warner Brothers, with all its properties that it has, you can do Scooby Doo in many ways. They still have Scooby Doo and Guess Who is still on Boomerang, if that still exists. But my thing is that you can do an adult Scooby Doo cartoon. But my fact is that if you don't have the way to resemble the original show, or at least find a new way to interpret it, because the live action Scooby Doo movies are the closest thing to an adult Scooby Doo in my eyes, and the Venture Brothers. But besides that, I don't even know what else to say about the show. What I can say is that at least I'm gonna spoil this. I'm gonna just go spoilers for the very end because if I'm being honest, I wasn't digging the mystery from the beginning until around episode 8. Uh, let's just say this, if you want to skip to the best parts of the show, are the last 3 episodes, because episode 8 introduces the whole Project Scooby thing, which I'm like, okay, that's your blatant Scooby Doo reference, and you can't reference Scooby Doo, so okay, here's your excuse to do it. But they actually reveal that Scrappy Doo is the actual serial killer, and I'm like, oh, so Scrappy Doo, that's interesting. And the fact that it's Scrappy Doo in the design that he had in the Scooby Doo movie, which is his monstrous muscular design. And I'm like, oh, so you're going deep cuts with this. Even the voice, which was Jason Mantzoukas, and I'm like, okay, for as ridiculous as the show is, this is perfect. And the fact they're like, so a talking dog? Are you sure that's not suspicious at all? He goes forth and actually kills Velma in the finale. And yes, they kill him soon right after, but I'm thinking to myself, huh, if this show gets canceled, does that mean that Scrappy Doo technically saved us from the show? All I can say is that at least it went out with a bang, which I can say Scrappy killed Velma, so that means Velma's dead, and her ghost is still haunting the supernatural. So that tells me that if this show gets canceled, whether or not it does or doesn't, I can at least say that Scrappy kind of did save this show, and this seems like a formidable finale because they already said that Velma's body is done, it can be resurrected, she can only go through heaven and hell. And knowing this show, we're not even going to get that kind of conclusion because I know everybody hates the show. I don't even know if anybody's down to watch the show, or I don't even know if people know the show actually came out because there was barely any promotion. I think I reviewed the trailer about last week when they released it. And the same thing happened last year because they didn't release the trailer for season 1 or this show until the day of, because I was like, it's kind of weird that it's getting close to that day and we haven't seen a trailer. And that morning when I did that video, I'm like, oh, the series is out right now. I just did my trailer reaction and then watched it the same day. Like nothing happened. At least the show wasn't week by week, because I would have been mad having to watch this week by week and not have anything happen until the last 3 episodes. Those are my thoughts about Velma. This show could get canceled, but if I'm being honest with you, with all the views people might make for HBO Max this weekend, who knows if we're going to get a season 3. If this show gets canceled here, I'm fine with the finale as is, just so we can actually be aware that Scrappy Doo, for as much as people hated him in the old days, I didn't hate him, actually killed Velma and could actually be the savior of this show. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. All my social media is down in the description below. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.